Hello and welcome to the second episode of our Inside Track series. Today we're going to be speaking with Amie Doherty, composer, conductor and orchestrator. Some of her recent composition projects include Sony and Hulu's Christmas hit Happiest Season. Focus features The High Note and Amazon's critically acclaimed series Undone. She's also recently composed the score for the Dreamworks animated feature film Spirit Untamed. Her list of credits is absolutely insane, but we're going to try and cover as much of that in an hour as we can. Now, just a couple of things before we get started. In order to get the best out of the webinar, try and make sure you have gallery view selected, not speaker view. And also select hide non-video participants so you can see Amy's camera a little bit bigger. We're also going to be running a Q&A. So as you see at the bottom of your screen, there's a Q&A tab. So please submit your questions and we'll try and answer a couple as we go, and also some more towards the end of the webinar. And finally, on the 2nd of November, we're going to have BAFTA and Emmy nominated sound designer, supervising sound editor and re-recording mixer Steve Fannigan in to speak with us. You can use the QR code on screen to scan and take you straight to the registration page. Don't worry if you don't catch that just now. I'll be bringing it up again at the end of the webinar. But I think I just saw Amie pop up on screen. Hi, Amie. How are things?
Hey, Orla, how's it going?
How are you keeping?
Good.
Yeah.
Bright and early.
Yeah, I know. I was just going to say it's 7 a.m. for you right now, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Wicked.
Sorry about that. I hope you got a chance to have a coffee or stuff this morning. Perfect.
Sure, yeah.
I thought we'd get started today by talking a little bit about your musical background. So the journey from Ballinasloe, Ireland, all the way to LA, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, perfect. So have you been into music since you were a kid?
Yeah. I grew up in a really musical family, and there's always just like music in our house. My mom is very musical. She writes kind of musicals as such for the local schools, and she's very involved in the music in the community in our little tiny town of Ballinasloe. And her and my uncle help run the local brass and woodwind band, the Ballinasloe Town Band. So I kind of just grew up around music. We have a huge family. I'm sure you're the same. Down the road. And everyone plays music, and we kind of I played piano as a kid. There was a piano in the house, and my brother was a drummer. My sister played the flute and the piano, and she's a singer, and it was always just everywhere. So it was kind of one of those things. I always knew that I would want to work in music. Or figure out how to do life in music, I suppose.
And your mom, so she was saying she wrote musicals, did you say?
Well, like she writes these kind of comedies, plays for the local kids and for the local schools. So, and puts them on like Christmas concerts and summer concerts, and she's always kind of does that, and she'll write her own kind of songs about the local area and stuff. And so when I was a kid, she would mortifyingly, she would come into my school and put, my class up on stage to do the play, and I would be sent in behind the piano to kind of play along with obviously all the songs, but she'd be, she'd pull the curtain back and shout forest music. It's one we always laugh at. And kind of ended up half live scoring at, 10, 12 years of age, sitting there terrified, kind of just playing music when something would go chaotically wrong on stage, and I'd get the hand from behind the curtain, keep it going.
That was probably a good grounding for film music, I'd say.
Well, I suppose looking back now, at the time I absolutely hated it and I wanted to kill her, but yeah, in a way it kind of made me think on my feet, I suppose.
And did you have a love for film as well at that point, or was it just music?
No, film definitely, for sure. Definitely, I think I grew up in that kind of golden era of Disney, in the kind of early mid-90s with The Lion King and Pocahontas and Beauty and the Beast and all of those. And I just love the music and the songs from all of those. And then kind of as I got older, I kind of found John Williams and James Horner and Anna Silvestri, and just those amazing scores, the big adventure orchestral scores that I just absolutely love and give us all goosebumps, and kind of just became obsessed with it from there.
And you've done a lot of animation work. Do you think that love of Disney movies from when you were a kid plays a part in that? Is that your favorite genre, or are you open to everything?
I like jumping around. Like, it's fun to work in different genres and not just, it's kind of good to cleanse the palate every so often. But I suppose when I got into this, I definitely, when I decided I wanted to move to LA and try my hand at being a film composer, I think I wanted, like, the dream was to score a big animated film. So because you get to write that, lush orchestral music, and I mean, I think I'll say 99% of composers' dream is to get to write something that will be recorded by a huge orchestra.
And animation is so tough because you have to score pretty much everything. You can't. There's no room for like subtlety. I think everything has to be when it's animated. So that's probably a big challenge for any composer. I think
it's more work than kind of scoring live action, but because you have to hit certain points, and then, especially with comedy, you have to decide like what to hit, what not to hit, when to pull out the music for the joke, when to hit the joke. But I really enjoy it. It's definitely a massive challenge, but I really, really enjoy it.
Oh, that's incredible. And did you study music in university?
I did. I went to Trinity College Dublin, and I did a music degree, and I majored in music technology. I actually started for the first 6 weeks in composition. We had to choose between composition, music technology, or music. I joined composition, and it was just very, concert focused and new music focused. And I just realized, I knew I kind of wanted to do the film thing. So I decided to switch over to music technology. And it was the best thing I ever did because, so much of this job is so tech based. So I feel like I got a really good grounding at that stage. We did Pro Tools, we did Spelius, we did Cubase, we learned, even things down to like pure data and like very early synthesis and stuff. So all of that, it just gave me a really good foundation, I think, for, because the technology is, you have to keep up on a weekly basis here. So I'm really, really grateful that I ended up doing a tech degree.
And when you were you composing at this point? Were you composing orchestral music and then like using music technology to put it all together and stuff like that? Was that what you did in that degree mostly?
Not really. The music tech degree would just be like various kind of assignments, and some of them were kind of writing in different styles and using all the different programs we were using basically. But I didn't really start writing until kind of after college, or right at the end of Trinity, when I was like 20 or 21. Like I knew I wanted to do it, but I knew I wanted to try the film composing thing. But I mean, you know how it is. It's like I come from Ballinasloe. It's like, how do you end up? Where do you start? For a Hollywood movie. So right at the end of Trinity, this amazing composer called Anna Rice, who's an Irish composer, came to just speak to our class. She was an alumni of the degree. And she was a composer, and she was working on a Nickelodeon show at the time. And that was kind of like, she sparked something in me. And I, met up with her afterwards. I reached out to her, and she told me about the ASCAP film scoring workshop that she had done, and a couple of other workshops and stuff that she had done. So she just kind of pointed me in the right direction. And I just felt like I had a piece now. And now I could and it's just one step at a time. And I just, by piece, kind of went from there. But she was definitely a huge inspiration.
And is that ASCAP film scoring workshop something you'd recommend for young composers? Did you find it beneficial?
Absolutely, yeah. I did. I actually applied, I think 6 times, 5 or 6 years in a row. Yeah. But the thing about all of these workshops, I did the Sundance workshop as well, the Sundance Music and Sound Design Lab. I applied for that one 4 or 5 times. It's like, you just have to keep at it, and every year your reel is going to get better. And I went away and actually wrote that was to get into Berkeley. I did my master's at Berkeley, in Berkeley College of Music in Valencia in Spain, because they had opened their international campus that year. We were the first year in, we were with masters in film scoring, and I wrote my reel for that because I just was like, I know, you know, I had submitted for the ASCAP workshop and I'd submitted for these various things over the years, and I just thought, well, I'm not getting in, so I have to go and write, you know, better music, and you know, so I kind of would, every year that the submission would come up, I'd write new cues for the reel. And something to keep in mind now that, you know, I've done it and I know the people who run the program and stuff, and you know, sometimes I'm a judge, like a first phase judge, where, you know, I listen and help to filter through applicants, is that we do, or they do, take into account that you've applied before, and they go back and listen to your music. So, you know, it's something fresh and just show that you're progressing, I think. But the ASCAP Film Workshop, sorry, to go back to your question, I did that in 2013, and it's absolutely amazing. I came out right after I'd finished Berkeley. I came out here to LA, and it's a month-long program, and at the end of it you get to score a cue that you write with a huge orchestra, Fox, I think we did it at Fox, and conduct it, and I shook like a leaf. I blacked out. I don't even remember being on the podium, that's the truth. But yeah, it was really, really incredible. And I got to, the scene that they gave me was a scene from How to Train Your Dragon, which is one of my favorite scores, John Powell. It's absolutely incredible. So it was no pressure. And it was an incredible experience.
And was that your first time conducting when you did that, or had you done a little bit before?
A tiny bit. I'd done some in at Berkeley, just for, you know, we would have these scoring sessions where they bring in like a few musicians, 5 to 10, or maybe like a small chamber group, and we had some conducting lessons at Berkeley. And but yeah, I mean, standing up on the podium at Fox or at Warner Brothers, it's like terrifying. Like, my hand was shaking like a leaf. But you know, the funny thing is about conducting, I don't call myself a conductor because I think it's an absolute insult to all of these people who spend decades of their lives studying to become conductors. I think when you're conducting at a film scoring stage, and there are many amazing conductors, but to me, I feel like I just lead the session. I'm a session leader. And it's a different kind of process, you know. With a concert, you might have like a week of rehearsal to, you know, iron out all the creases and stuff. But with film scoring, you're up there, you run it down once, which is basically the rehearsal audit usually. So then you give a few notes, you might get 3 or 4, maybe 5 passes, couple of changes, and it's done. You know, the cue that you wrote or the cue that whoever wrote, it's rehearsal, it's like, and it's done in 5 minutes. So it's a different job, I think.
Yeah, I think as a film composer, you kind of need to be good at all of these things. You're not like it's like you said with music technology, you have to kind of be a producer in some ways, you have to be a composer, orchestrator,
absolutely, mixer, engineer. yeah, you gotta know like mic setups and mixing techniques, and
it's
all
crazy. And at what point did you decide to move to LA for good?
I came here when I went to Berkeley in Spain, and then the third kind of semester, the third term, they brought us out here for a few weeks to meet with various people. We met with, you know, other composers, agents, music supervisors. We went to mixing stages, just got a feel for, you know, everything across the board. And so I came here, and that was in summer 2013, and I found out when I was here that I'd been accepted to the ASCAP scoring workshop, which is in July. So I stayed for the summer, and then kind of decided that I really wanted to, you know, give this a go. So applied for my O1 visa, which takes forever to sort out. So I ended up going back to Ireland for, I think, about 5 or 6 months, and then came out here with a work visa in 2014.
That must have been strange coming back to Ireland after all that time away. It must have been weird coming back to live in Ireland for 5 or 6 months. Were you living in Ballinasloe at that time?
Yeah, it was great to be fed.
Oh yeah, true.
Before I'd gone to Spain, I'd been traveling I lived in South Korea for a year, and then Vietnam, and all over Southeast Asia and India, and then went straight to Spain. So yeah, it was definitely kind of reverse culture shock coming home, but it was great, you know, to get mommy's dinners for 6 months.
My family is the exact same. They're feeders. You get like eating 5 or 6 times a day when I'm home.
Yeah, it's great.
And when you were in LA, what was your first job that you got?
Actually, I got my first job at the scoring session for the ASCAP workshop. I met an amazing composer called Joachim Horsley. He was an alumni of the ASCAP program, and he, you know, they invite past composers along to just come and enjoy the session. And I had a good chat with him, and he was looking for some help. So he actually helped me to get my visa. He signed a support letter, and I came out. He was a composer, but at the time he was working, he was scoring various films and stuff, but he was mostly at the time orchestrating for kind of artists. Like he was working on John Legend's world tour at the time, orchestrating that, and also he was working with Ben Folds. So I kind of got, you know, thrown in the deep end in terms of learning Sibelius very quickly, and he taught me a lot, and kind of had to learn on my feet. And he has a small, amazingly, and it's gorgeous, small recording studio at his studio. So I just learned a lot about mic setups. You know, I would set up mix templates for him, set up writing templates, build a template in Vienna, and then route it, worked in Pro Tools, or route it, I should say. That was very American of me. So yeah, I just I got so much experience working for him. I worked for him for about a year and a half, and he's still a really, really good friend of mine.
And do you think that job, that assistant orchestrating job, helped you kind of build up your skill set for orchestrating the TV shows? So I think you've orchestrated Fargo, Treadstone, Umbrella Academy, both Star Trek series. My family are big Trekkies. So that's incredible. Do you think that grounding that you got from him, do you think that helped with those?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I learned things from him that I guess like you don't learn in college, and there's so much of this job that you have to learn on the job. Down to like taping, like how to tape parts together for musicians so that they can turn the page easily. That kind of thing, you know, how to tape conductor scores, which is a different thing than how you tape musicians' parts, and page turns, and yeah, just all the, you know, the nooks and crannies of Sibelius, basically getting it under your fingers. So yeah, it definitely gave me like a really good foundation. And yeah, you know, as it is, the way the deadlines work in TV and stuff, like it's such a quick turnaround. So the fact that I had learned so much of that when I was working with him definitely paid off when I got around to kind of orchestrating a lot of those shows.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how long do you get to orchestrate maybe an episode of what is the turnaround? It probably varies.
It's short. It does vary. You usually get a little bit more on a movie, or at least I did. But orchestrating TV shows like Star Trek, I usually would have 3 days, and it would be, 30 minutes of music in 3 days. Yeah, and I was the copyist as well, so I would do all the formatting, and then eventually, I work with an assistant. I have an amazing assistant, Ellie Cumming. She lives in Sydney, Australia, funnily enough. So she's been helping me for a couple of years, and she's amazing as well, and an amazing orchestrator herself. So so all of it, I was doing it down to the taping, and I stopped orchestrating about a year and a half or 2 years ago, just because I got busy on my own composing work. But I will say I missed the taping, because the taping was the part. It would take hours. It's so dumb, but it's like an excuse to watch Netflix while you're working.
Therapeutic as well.
So, yeah, I really enjoyed it, and you knew it was the end of the project, so it was like a fun little task, and like you knew the hard work was done. And you could just chill and watch Netflix till 2 a.m. and then go to the session at 8 a.m.
Bit of downtime. But when you are orchestrating, do you work closely with the composer on the project?
Yeah, so the shows that I orchestrated were the composer, for the most part, was Jeff Bruce, who did Star Trek Picard and Fargo. And Academy in season 2, he co-composed it with Perrine Virgile, and Treadstone, Altered Carbon were with co-composed with Jordan Gagne, who happens to be my other half, and so those were interesting sessions where I'm conducting and he's in the booth. So I would work closely with them, and they all work in Pro Tools. I write in Pro Tools myself, and obviously Pro Tools and Sibelius, there's a really nice handoff between those programs. So for when I was working with Jeff, I would just get his Pro Tools sessions, and then I would clean it up in the session. I had my whole process, or import a bunch of my own tracks, clean tracks, and then just copy down all of his stuff, clean it up, quantize it, get it all sorted, export into Sibelius into a template that I'd obviously made. I would make a new template for every show. So that, and I think that's like absolutely key is having as much prep work done as you can, because when you have 3 days to do the work, you don't want to be fixing the same thing in every single cue, because there can be like 35 cues. So you got to have your template like absolutely pristine. And I love that kind of stuff anyway. I'm like an organizing freak. So it's all spreadsheets and templates and as smoothly as it can run, automatically. But yeah, I would get Pro Tools sessions, get them into Sibelius, do the like dynamics, articulations, rebalancing harmonies, checking voicings, swapping voicings, and making suggestions, which I would use cue marks for. If we were like, do we want to double this with the horns? Do we want to have the cellos play an octave, below the violas? Blah blah blah. So all that kind of stuff, and then formatting, printing, taping.
All the bits and pieces. And then from there you're into the recording stage to get it down with the orchestra, is it? And sorry, go ahead. No, I was just going to say, do you enjoy that side of things? Where would you be your favorite place to record?
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. I actually miss it a lot, because for composers, a lot of us work alone. Like I'm here, home studio, on my own all the time. And before the pandemic, I would schedule a lot of lunches and stuff to get out of the house and go and meet people for coffee. But then, for the last year, everyone's just been hunkered down. So it was lovely, because it meant that I could get out of the house, go to a session, be on a team, work with a team of people. And we had a really, really great team, and it was always so fun. We would record at Warner Brothers stage or the Fox stage, Sony, sometimes the Bridge, just various places around LA. And sometimes we recorded internationally, so we'll go to Prague. I'm not sure about Jeff, but I've recorded in Macedonia, and a couple other places. So we've flown to Nashville, and so it's really, really fun. I love the sessions. It's like all the hard work is done. It's stressful because you're on a time constraint, and you have to like get a seriously crazy amount of minutes recorded in 3 hours, 6 hours, usually 6 hours for a TV show, with a big orchestra. So it's stressful, but I don't know, I love it. I love that kind of adrenaline.
No, I understand. Kind of tests your stress skills, basically. Something like that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, on the composing side of things, I think your first major score was the dark drama Here and Now by starring Sarah Jessica Parker. Excuse me. How did you get involved in that project?
Michael Hill, the music supervisor on that one, had been the music supervisor on a project on an indie film, beautiful indie film that I did the year before, and it's called Keep the Change. It was blank. Keep the Change, and that film had won the Tribeca Film Festival, the Best Narrative Feature. And actually got that film from the Sundance Music and Lab Workshop.
It's all connected.
Music and Sound Design Lab. Yes, it is. It's absolutely. Everything is just one big web. So he recommended me. He had a relationship with them, and Pretty Matches, which is SJP's production company, who were making the film, and he had worked with them for a number of years. So he reached out, asked for a reel, and I sent over my reel, and they liked the music, so we met, and I got hired for the job, which was amazing. It was so fun.
And the score for that is, I think, really cool. It's quite dark, but the instrumentation is quite kind of minimal in a way compared to the big orchestral stuff. Could you talk us through a little bit of your choices for that? Because I think that score and the Undone scores, which is quite similar, are really amazing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think just when I met with the director Fabian, I'm pronouncing that wrong, Fabian. He wanted it to be this very intimate. The director of Here and Now, he wanted it to have this very intimate sound. The film is about Sarah Jessica Parker plays a woman who finds out at the start of the film that she has a brain tumor, and it's basically one day in her life, kind of a snapshot of her life of the day she finds out. So, and she's a singer. In her character is a singer, so he wanted it to almost sound like it's within her house that's going on in her head for the day and all of the thoughts that she's thinking. So we definitely wanted to keep it small and keep it minimal, and that's why kind of doing little crazy vocal effects. Honestly, there's some singing, but they're just like smashing off each other, and it's basically to give this vibe of what's going on in the chaos of her head in this crazy day in her life. And we actually went to I flew to New York and actually recorded Sarah Jessica Parker singing the vocals on the score, which was so fun. And yeah, she was such a good sport about it, because there's some of them were just like crazy vocal sounds, but we had a lot of fun recording it, and yeah, they were really, really fun to work with.
Oh, cool. And the Undone series has quite dark in places. But did you find scoring something dark that was animation a bit different? Because it has some solo instruments like piano and cello in it, and it has some vocal effects in it as well. Did you approach these two in a similar way, or?
Yeah, I think with Undone, it is an Amazon series, but it's not a huge budget production. I mean, it's big because on the animation side, but it's not one of these. It's not like Spirit Untamed, where we had a budget for a 90-piece orchestra or whatever. So, but in a way, I actually love that, because I think there's creativity and limits. I always say that. And sometimes when you're put in a box, you end up writing something that you wouldn't write. Like if I had a full orchestra, I wouldn't have written the Undone score.
Yeah.
There's a few soloists on it. My friend Maria, who is an amazing, and she lives in Russia. We went to Berkeley together, and she records all of the violins and stuff. Rowan over here in LA recorded cello, and it's just very intimate score with a few small elements, and I think we wanted to, I don't know if you've seen Undone, but it's a very all of the backgrounds in every single frame, which I think is amazing, are hand painted oil paintings.
Beautiful.
There's a team in Amsterdam and another team in Texas, and they paint these amazing backgrounds. I actually have one. They gave one to me as a wrap gift, a gift of it's Alma's piano, the lead character, which just blew my mind. But it's got this very like handmade feel. And they do film the actors, and then they rotoscope them on, which is, I call it's like tracing in very, very layman's terms, but they rotoscope it onto the oil painting. So I just wanted it to kind of reflect that. I wanted the score to reflect that handmade feel. So yeah, it's quite intimate and raw. Like the recordings are very raw.
And there's a couple of cool synth things in there, and then there's some really cool panning done on the vocals. Was that something that you chose, or would that been a mixer, working with a mixer, or was that your call yet?
No, that's me, because I actually mix it all myself. So and part of that was that it was a small palette, and we did just a few musicians on the score, and the vocals are just me, and I am not a singer by any means. I'm horrific, so but God bless Melodyne, but so I felt like, well, it's not this perfect performance, but how can I make it like interesting to listen to? And the show does it deals with kind of perception versus reality, and there's a lot of like spinning around and jumping through timelines and stuff. So I just thought it'd be really cool to use the music to kind of reflect. So yeah, there's I use a lot of the Sound Toys plugins, live on those. Cool. Tremolator, Echo Boy, Crystallizer, Decapitator, all of those. And it's amazing what you can do even with like a really small palette of, maybe there's like 20 elements, I'm not sure, 20, 25. And but when you can make anything sound unique with we have all these amazing tools at our disposal, so there's just no need for every score to sound the same, you know?
Yeah, and I think those mixing techniques are an art in themselves, because even that panning with the vocals and stuff, it really brings you into the world. You kind of get lost in it. It really adds something. So I think that's an art in itself. So I just absolutely love that.
Yeah, it's part of the composing process. It's like you're writing with, thank you, you're writing with the mixing tools as well, you know, which is all music. So.
And for the high note and the happiest seasons, their scores are a little bit lighter. Did you find it hard to switch gears into those ones, or were you happy to try something new?
Oh no, I just, you know, I love those kind of movies, especially happy season. I am obsessed with Christmas movies. I've seen them all, every single one, I think. And I watch even the horrifically bad ones. You know?
Me too.
I won't
always
mention which. I love them. No, when I came on that, I was absolutely delighted. I'm like, someone's going to let me use sleigh bells.
Yeah.
So, it's really fun to write that lighter stuff. You know, sometimes comedy can be kind of hard to write. That's actually one of the hard, I find. It's kind of the hardest one to find the tone on, because you don't want to, you know, in a live action thing like this, it's different with Spirit Untamed, but in Happy Season or The High Note, you got to let the comedy be on screen and sit back and not step on it, basically. But I really enjoy kind of figuring that out and trying out different things. Like if you take the music out here, is the laugh bigger? Or if you take it out here, it's about finding like the moments and the gear shifts in every scene. So I really, really, really enjoyed it.
And with the high note, there was a lot of original songs in that. Did you work with those songwriters to kind of incorporate that into the score?
I didn't work with the songwriters. The songs were already, because a lot of them were sang on screen, those had already been written before I ever came on the film. And I actually came on quite late in that process on that one. So I did incorporate a couple of the melodies to the main songs. I just thought it'd be really nice to kind of tie them into the score and use them that way. But no, I didn't work with the artists. They were already
okay,
recorded.
Perfect. And on to the biggest one, the Spirit Untamed. When you came to work on that project, had you ever worked with Dreamworks before?
I had actually. I'd done a short film as part of the Universal Composers Initiative. I had, it's a long story. I was a participant in the Universal Composers Initiative in 2018, and our first kind of task was we got to pitch for these 2 DreamWorks short films, 10 minutes each, and they opened it up for us to throw our hat in the mix. There were 8 of us composers, and I actually got hired to score the film. It's a beautiful film called Marooned, and we went to Abbey Road, recorded the score, and we got the A-class composer treatment. It was amazing. It's such a beautiful, beautiful film, and the director Andy Erickson is so great. And so I had met a lot of the DreamWorks people then and worked with the Universal Film Music Department. We were just so supportive, and they run this program. So when the time came up right after I finished The High Note, Mike Knobloch, who is the president of film music at Universal, he pitched me for Spirit Untamed. He, he threw me in the mix with the filmmakers. So they sent me the script, and I met with them, and never thought in a million years that I would get the gig, but thought I'll throw my best at it. And it was. I mean, it was a dream come true. Not to sound mushy, but it was absolutely. I woke my mother up at 3:00 in the morning to tell her, and it was. Like I said earlier, it's like scoring a big animated film with an orchestra was the dream. So it was very, very exciting.
And that's such a huge project. What's the first step for something like that? Do you have talks with the team? Like, what's your first port of call when you're approaching a score like that?
Yeah, the first thing I did was read the script, and before I actually met with them, and just kind of went through and made notes for myself. I usually read a script like twice if I can. First, just to read it and get the story, and not worry too much about music. And then I read it a second time and kind of go through. And I like to print it off and have it in my hands, and I like to make little notes, just for scenes that I think could be worth discussing in the meeting, and just ideas for the score. So I had made a bunch of ideas, and came and met with the team. Our director Lane Bogan, co-director Ennio Torsan, and Karen Foster was our producer. So I met with them and kind of just pitched my ideas of what I thought the score should be, or how, not what the score should be, how the music could help like tell this story. And funnily enough, I had written at the top of my notes, I had this idea. I'm a big Fleet Foxes fan, and I liked the idea of kind of having this new American folk sound mixed in with the typical symphonic orchestral Western sound. And I had written, Fleet Foxes, didn't know, if they'd even know the Fleet Foxes, and got on the call, and before I'd even mentioned it, Elaine, the director, said that they had been using this Fleet Foxes song in the temp, which actually made it to the final film, and that she's the biggest Fleet Foxes fan of all time. And so I literally turned my notebook around, and I'm like, I did not just write this down. Like it was crazy. It was just one of those like crazy coincidence moments. So we were just totally on the same page right from the get-go. And then the first thing I had to do was to write this song called Fearless. It wasn't called Fearless at the time. It was called Demo 1. And I had to write that for the film because the film, it sang a couple of times in the film and it had to be animated. So I came in the process quite early to do that. So it was actually great because I had a luxurious amount of time compared with The High Note. I think I had 3 or 4 weeks, and Happiest Season I had 2 months, I think. But this one I was on for Spirit, I was on for 10 months. So I had a luxurious amount of time to like figure out themes, play them for them, go back and forth, and
And so you were writing your first song. How was it approaching lyrics? Had you ever written lyrics before?
No, I had not.
How was that?
Not a songwriter, but when I came on the project, they had been working with the Universal film music team to find this song. And the plan was for the composer to, take the song and maybe work it into the score or somehow. I don't think it had been fully worked out. And I knew that I wanted to be able to control that melody because I thought it'd be great to use it throughout the film and, treat it different ways and bring it that. The song is a lullaby that a mother sings to her baby at the start of the film. And then, spoiler alert, we lose the mother in the first couple of minutes. So throughout the film, it's about this daughter, Lucky is, throughout the film, whenever she's vulnerable or stuff like that, I wanted to be able to use the melody from the song to kind of wrap her in a blanket as such, and remind her that, her mom's looking down on her, and that she's taking care of her, that she's with her basically, and to encourage her to be fearless. So I just basically asked them, I was like, can I take a stab at this song? And they were like, sure. And amazing. Then, I asked them, tell me everything that you think, what would this mother want to tell her baby? So we had a really long discussion about it, which I thought was really, really, really helpful. And then, I was like very inspired by the discussion and went away and just wrote, it started out as a lullaby. So it was just like a minute, the first kind of verse and chorus of what's in the final song. And sang it myself, which was mortifying, and sent it over to them thinking it would only be the director and, the core team that would hear it. Because I sound like some like chipmunk Mary Poppins, and they blasted it out across the Dreamworks, Universal. Everyone heard it. It was more.
Oh my god!
But they liked it, so it worked.
That's a credit to you that they were only supposed to be placeholders, but they were so good that it was like plastered everywhere.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking, or I thought that they would eventually bring on a lyricist to, so I just thought I just want to write the melody. So I didn't overthink the lyrics in a way, but I used obviously words that we had discussed, like bravery and strength and all that kind of stuff. And they just loved the lyrics, so we ended up keeping them.
That's amazing. And when you're writing, do you start in Pro Tools or Sibelius, or do you play at the piano, or what's your process?
It kind of depends on the project. For Spirit, it was definitely at the piano. I have, because it was a song and I wanted to just work it out at the piano. So and I love doing that. It's nice to get away from the desk sometimes, you know, and just take a coffee and sit at the piano for the whole afternoon or something and just play with ideas and work it out. So I did with that one. You know, on Undone, it's a different thing because I felt like Undone was more about the palette. It was more about the sounds, you know, so that was more building the palette first and, you know, finding, you know, going on all these adventures to find cool sounds and then kind of writing it with the sounds that you have. Like sometimes the melodies, harmonies, whatever, are inspired by the sounds that you're using. So it's different on everyone.
Right, and there's a lots of styles in this. There's a bit of an Old West feel. There's some Mexican elements, some pop elements. How do you go about figuring that out and keeping the whole score cohesive?
Excuse me. I don't know. I guess what was crazy about this one is that we actually recorded the orchestra in London in early February, and I couldn't go because of COVID. None of us could go. So it was booked for Abbey Road. There was a point where I thought we're never going to be able to do this. But they figured it out. The guys at Abbey Road are absolutely amazing. And via various amazing technologies, I was able to sit here in my studio in LA and speak directly into the musicians' ears in Abbey Road. And we ran it. We had 9 days of recording, and it was, you know, I was up at 5 every morning or 4:30 because they were in London. And then, so we recorded all the orchestra there. And then back here in LA, I recorded the soloists. So there's like acoustic guitars, Brian Winslow, nylon guitar, the Spanish guitar stuff. So my friend Andrew Napier, and then Robin Pecknold of the Fleet Foxes. He recorded at his place with his vocal engineer. And then just getting it all back together and piecing it together. I had an amazing team on this project. It was the gold standard. You know, everyone kind of knew that we were in a pandemic and just pitched in and figured it out.
No, it's an incredible score because I know you have that big orchestral feel, but there's something different about it. You've got, like you said, those acoustic guitars and then the earthy vocals. There's something that feels unique about it, even though it is that big animated feature film, and we've seen so many of them. There's something quite unique about it. It's absolutely beautiful. And I love the scene where Lucky first tries to ride Spirit. Could you talk us a bit through like how you planned that? What was your thought process going in?
We call that the Tango scene. I came on, they had jumped in some, basically what the scene is Lucky, you know, trying to basically just even get to touch Spirit, the horse, and figuring out that if she takes one step forward, he takes a step back, and then if she takes a step back, he'll come towards her. So it's about her learning how to communicate with Spirit. And the team, it was their idea. They had temped in some tango music, but it didn't match. Basically, it was just a vibe. So it wasn't actually edited to a piece of music, which made it a little more difficult, but it was a fun challenge. So basically I thought, the really cool idea would just be to base the rhythm on their footsteps. And there's a lot of those close-up shots of, Lucky's feet and then Spirit's feet. And so, it was just about finding the tempo. Definitely spent quite a while building a tempo map for that one. And just about the give and take and having the music kind of match the give and take, the rhythm. It slows and stops and starts, and trying to match her steps and Lucky's jumps, and
And when you're approaching a project like that, do you go do you have to think of it cue by cue, like to keep yourself sane, or are you constantly thinking about the project as on a whole? Because I can imagine that could be quite overwhelming.
Oh, for sure. I think on this one I started, which is what I like to do, is take I think on Spirit it was like 5 or 6 major scenes, like big moments where I felt like, we need to find the tone of this scene and really establish the music in this scene, usually where the themes are. So I tackled those big kind of scenes, and once the themes were approved and everybody liked them and was familiar with them, then I go back in and I kind of fill in the blanks of Usually work top to bottom. I usually, find the key scenes. And then I always find that once that's been established and the really important parts are in, the rest kind of writes itself,
And you mentioned
with
this
the help
briefly.
of a lot of coffee.
Yeah, loads and loads of coffee. But you mentioned already about working through the pandemic. Did you have to change the way you worked other than the recording session? Do you find that any other changes you had to, did it slow the process down a little bit? Were you heavily reliant on technology? I assume you were.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, the funny thing was I never actually met the team, the team at Dreamworks until the final playback of the film in April.
That's crazy.
And I was on it for 10 months. So we had all of our meetings over Zoom, Evercast, Clearview, all of the texts. And so that was a challenge in itself, like trying to, as you know, Orla, the enemy of composers are laptop speakers. So hoping that whoever's, reviewing your cues is not listening on laptop speakers. And, most people are on these, and, sometimes you get a note about, like there's no low end, and it's like, it's there. It's just, you're on your AirPods. But, so it was a bit of a challenge, but, yeah, we figured it out.
Or you send mix 27 and then once you've hit sent, you hear something that you don't like. You're like, no, take it back. But we've had a couple of great questions in from the Q&A. So I just thought we'd spend a couple of minutes answering those before we finish up, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So we have one. When you're given a scene, what are the first steps you take to start getting creative and to start composing? What do you look for first to get started? Vibe, mood? Do you pick a particular key? There's like 10 questions in there, sorry.
Oh, good. Usually what I do is, I have my template all ready to go. And then I'll put the marker for where the music comes in. And I just watch through the scene. Some people don't like temp music. I like to watch it with temp music. And usually, you would have discussed with the filmmakers before in the spotting session what's working about the temp, what's not working about the temp, what the scene needs, how the music can help, tell the story in the scene. And I go in and I make various markers for important points and moments in the scene, and that usually dictates the tempo. And then it depends if you have a theme and you've written, a theme. Which theme do we use here, or is this just a kind of a pad moment sometimes? So and then I just build it from there, I guess. I usually start with the important moments and then just kind of build it around that.
Oh, okay. And I think over-composing sometimes can be the enemy, trying to do too much.
Oh, yeah. So, that's me in it. I'm a maximalist.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to pull it out. Yeah.
But we got another great one. When you compose a score, what do you stick to the same key? Do you work in some key changes? Do you have like a plan in terms of key when you're composing, or do you just roll with it?
Not really, honestly. On Spirit, at least, it kind of it's kind of like it was almost key wise like true composed, because it's just about, you need a shift in this moment, so now you're in a different key, so then the cue that I'd written for after that, have to change the key, because it all has to work together at the end of the day, but no, I don't, and to be honest, when I start writing things, I like to write in different keys, sometimes you're just like, I'm going to do this in F sharp major, because basically my fingers on the piano will do something different than they would in C major, and maybe something cool will come from that. So that's like a really fun thing to do. Especially if I get stuck and I'm like trying to write something and you're just like, I cannot get anything good out. Change key, just shift it up. And you'll end up writing something different just purely based on how your fingers land.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I think you touched on this already a little bit, but someone has asked if being a composer and a sound engineer, is it a good combination? Would you recommend honing all of those skills? If you want to,
I think you definitely, you definitely need to know them all, especially, this is all fine and well talking about these studio films, but like for years, and I still do work on independent films where we don't have the budget for a mixer or an orchestra or any of that. And even on Undone, I do it all myself. But yeah, I think all of those skills are vital to know, and also because, like I said, if you know how to mix, you can also use those skills in the writing. So it like creates something unique and different. But yeah, you kind of learn it all as you go. And one thing that I think is important to note is sometimes you see composers with these huge rigs and they have every piece of gear you've ever heard of. And, when I moved to LA, like I didn't have the money for that at all. So it was, I literally had a laptop, and then I got a Mac Mini where I, stored my samples and ran Vienna from. And slowly, piece by piece, I'm building it up. I still am building it up. But I think sometimes people think that you have to have all of the gear and everything at your disposal to write the music. And it's just not true. You can do amazing things with a laptop and, the Pro Tools samples, the Logic samples, whatever you have, and just make it work.
I think it can be overwhelming as well when you have too much. Sometimes when you
absolutely
narrow it down a bit, you can probably get more done instead of roaming through different sounds for hours and not getting any compositing.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure you've been asked this question a million times, but you were the first woman to score the Dreamworks feature film. And what are your hopes in terms of that for the future? Do you think things are starting to change a little bit?
I do. Yeah, I do. I feel like in the last couple of years, there's been like really positive shifts made towards, women in this industry being included. And yeah, like I didn't know I was the first composer for a Dreamworks film until a few months into the project. I don't think the director knew it either. And it's, it's exciting, and it was like I was gobsmacked, but at the same time, it shouldn't be a thing. Why is it a thing? It shouldn't be a thing, and hopefully in a few years, seeing a woman's name at the end of Film Under the Music by credits won't be something that anyone comments on, and it'll just be the norm. That's really what I hope for all of this. And I hope to see more women getting into technology, because I think that's a huge access kind of barrier to this job. And for some reason, I think in society, we don't encourage young women to get involved with technology. And I would say that's 90% of this job, so that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, I think you want to get to the point where it's just composer and engineer, and gender has absolutely nothing to do with it.
Yeah, because it's like we don't, I was on a panel this weekend and one of the panelists said, we don't say male director, we don't say male composer. So like, why are, it
sounds so odd, but
things are changing.
Yeah, perfect. And then I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions, but you're probably sworn to secrecy, but is there any projects you're working on now that you can tell us a little bit about broadly, or are you like under contracts?
Well, I'm today, before we chatted, I'm working on the final episode of Undone season 2.
Oh, cool.
So that's almost done. It's incredible. It's this season is so good. And then I have a couple of other, things
bits
going on.
Yeah, fair enough. Is there any genres you really want to try that you haven't got a chance to try yet? Would you like to do a horror?
I guess I did a horror film, honestly, a few years ago. I did this independent horror film, and honestly, I had nightmares.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able for it.
So I just thought, I don't know if horror's for me, because I'm, too much of a wuss for that. But yeah.
Oh, amazing. Well, Amie, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us today. I know you have an absolutely crazy schedule, and it's very early in the morning. So thank you so much, and good luck with all your future projects.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all.
Thanks, Orla.
No worries. And just a final note before we finish up, that again, on the 2nd of November, we have our episode with Steve Fannigan, BAFTA and Emmy nominated sound designer. So you can use the QR code on screen to sign up for that. It'll bring you straight to the registration page. But thank you so much for joining us today, guys, and we hope to see you at the next one.